Hello all. You might notice right now that the screen is black, and that is because this review that I'm going to do is going to be a review without visuals, and the reason I'm doing that is because I want this to be more like a podcast. I'm shifting more toward that format of not really having visuals or music on the screen, and the reason is basically that me not having a ton of time for reviews, I like to push out my content quickly after I record it, and so in order to post more content with my thoughts and having the audio on there, which is really the meat of the reviews, I'm going to go more toward this format. And, if you've enjoyed my videos that have the visuals and more of the music, I do apologize for that. I am going to still have some of those videos, but mostly for the videos on my channel, I'm going more for the podcast feel for the videos. So I just wanted to get that out of the way, and you'll notice going forward, and even some videos I've already posted have kind of been in that format. But I wanted to get that out of the way because I'm going to be talking about a very special film today. This is a film that I've just come back from seeing, so I haven't had time to write my thoughts down or anything, although I have thought about it. One of the things about being a reviewer is that you almost start writing your review as soon as you get out of the theater. It's kind of like part of the symptoms that come with making this kind of content. But I'm going to be talking about this film with full spoilers, so warning ahead for that. This film is, I just hit my hand very hard and that hurt. No cuts. This film is Inside Out 2. This is the Pixar film Inside Out 2. So, just for some background, I was able to watch the original Inside Out film when it came out in the theater back in 2000-something. I don't remember exactly when that was, but I was able to see that film, and I really liked it. And I thought it was very poignant. I thought it was one of those films that could appeal to people, cross-culturally. I thought it was a film that could be pretty timeless. It does have some technology that ties it to the specific time period it's in. But other than that, it's a pretty timeless film, I think. And I thought it pretty well wrapped it up. And I was going to basically avoid this film until it... Well, not avoid it, but I wasn't going to pay to see it at the theater until it came out on video, Inside Out 2, that is. And the reason is, I thought the first film was so good when I saw it back when it came out that I just didn't really think that there was a lot that you could do with Inside Out 2. I hadn't seen the trailer, of course, but I just kind of thought, well, Disney, Pixar, they kind of have a little bit of a tradition of putting sequels to things that are going to be profitable, and of course Inside Out was a very profitable film. At least I believe it was. I really should look up the stats for that. Maybe I'll do a video on the box office for this film, the sequel. But anyway, I thought the film was kind of self-contained. I didn't really think they could do a lot with the sequel, so I wasn't really interested in it. But then I found out a buddy of mine was going to go see it, and I thought, well, I really haven't gone to see like a summer blockbuster this year. I hadn't gone to see the Lord of the Rings series in theaters when they were screened again, so I thought, you know what? I really should go to see this film with this buddy, and I have a tradition of going to see films together, and I thought it could be something fun for us to do together, and so we went to this film, and I gotta say, I really like this, and I'll tell you why I like it. It's because they're doing things with this film that I think you kind of need a sequel to do, in the specific way that they're telling the story, because the first film very much, and I hadn't really thought about this, because if this tells you how relatable that first film is, I mean, I saw that film well into my 20s. I don't remember when it came out. It was like 2017, 2018. I don't remember exactly when it was. Might have been before that. But that film very much is about childhood, and even me as an adult, I hadn't thought about this because I was watching it, and I'm like, well, everyone has these emotions. And I hadn't really thought about the fact that film 2 could be focused on adolescence and how your emotions change at that time. And I guess I could have put that together if I would have sat down and thought about it, but it was one of those films, again, that I just thought, I'm sure it's not going to be bad, but I just don't really... I just banged my elbow that time. I really need to back away from that surface. It's one of those films that I just thought, you don't really need to make a sequel to it. So going to see this and it picking back up from the original, which was something that surprised me. I liked what it was doing. I liked that it kind of just, it almost doesn't miss any time at all. from the original. But then, it shows Riley kind of being at peace with her emotions, and then the whole puberty thing hits. So, a big positive here I have to say from the beginning is that even though the humor a lot of times and the jokes are very sort of on the nose, very obvious sometimes, in like it just has a big flashing button that says puberty, it never stays on the nose. Like I feel like even though it didn't really have any complex things that ushered in this new era of emotion, the second that the characters hit that button or the button went off, I don't remember which one it was. I like that as soon as that happened, everything became an allegory and it became very smart. So the voice actress who is playing Riley in this, she's doing a great job. The emotions are still doing a great job. I heard that there might have been some recastings. Didn't really notice. I heard that there was a different composer. Didn't really notice that either, because it just kind of seems like they hit their stride again right in the beginning. And I like some of the allegories they put in there. Puberty is messy. The coming in and wrecking everything. Nothing works the way it used to. They hit the button and now it's like overly sensitive and all the emotions. Again, like you have that moment in the beginning where Riley is just kind of screaming at her parents. It's like, oh, look, puberty, it just took place overnight. Now she's a completely different person. Yes, I know it doesn't exactly work like that, but I think it still gets the point across. I mean, maybe they could have done that a little bit better with a time jump or something, but I don't really think they needed to. This isn't Turning Red. We kind of already had a movie that was a little bit more of an accurate allegory for that kind of thing, like the physical thing. So I think this movie being more about the emotions, I don't really think you need to have that specific time jump. I think it gets the job done. I think people watching this who understand this get what it's like to go through that period of adolescence when your emotions are all over the place. And I like that it's not one-dimensional either. I like that it's not a thing where it's like, oh my gosh, these teenagers, they're so hormonal now, and it's just like, I like in this movie especially, and I know this is something that happened in the original too, but I like how much the emotions in this film are willing, not are willing, I like that the producers of this film were willing to give the characters, like the emotions, other emotions, a lot more than I thought they did in the original one. Again, it's been a while since I've seen the original, so maybe that's a failing on my part. But I like that, anger can be encouraging and that joy can, panic and be really sad and that sadness can be really happy. Again, I know that's something that was touched on a little bit in the original, but it just kind of adds to the idea that these emotions are complex. So, I really like that. I like the focus too on Riley in this one, that the focus is mostly on Riley. So I do have a little bit of a negative in this film. And it's not really a negative because I think it pulls it all together at the end beautifully, which I'm going to talk about. But I think two things. First, I think this film could be a little bit complicated for children because all of this, again, is sort of the beauty of the first Inside Out movie is that it's an adventure happening inside Riley's head, but it's also sort of an allegory. So you're getting the jokes. As a person who knows more about, children, as an adult, you're getting these jokes, right? But also, as a child watching the film, you are also on the adventure with the emotions in Riley's head. That's kind of what's great about Pixar in general, appealing to kids and adults at the same time. This, I feel, gets a little bit convoluted about, the belief system and the new emotions. Like, again, I appreciate all those things, but I think it's a little bit convoluted in the middle with that stuff. Not so much that the kids aren't going to be entertained, because we were in the theater, I still heard kids laughing at all the funny parts and, getting quiet during all the sad. So it's like, I'm sure they're still engaged, but it doesn't feel as much of a clear-cut story as the original one does in the middle there. And I think even for adults, it's like, some of the symbolism, it's like, I don't really know what this is signifying, because you've got like the big pile of like bad memories at the back of the mind, and the old sense of self is under that, and then you've also got the beliefs that are being taken over by the anxiety, and then you've got the thing happening inside the central I forgot, it's like some clever thing that's like a pun about like the central part of the brain or whatever. You've got that whole thing going on with the old characters and the new characters, and so you've got all these things happening at the same time. And like, I get it, when you're going through adolescence, your emotions are really complicated, but sometimes I feel like they're just kind of doing things that aren't as clear cut. Like, I'm not doing things just to do them, which is probably what I was going to say. I don't think they're doing things just to do it. But like, it gets a little muddied there, and in the middle, it's not as clear cut. I think it's in the middle there. I just feel like there are some parts that probably could have been maybe streamlined a little bit, because you've got the old sense of self that's buried under the big pile of bad memories, and you got the new sense of self, which is at the central part, and then you got rid of both of those, and it's like the new sense of self, which is there, which is kind of balanced. So the specifics of that get a little convoluted. However, the resolution, I'm going to talk about that because that is actually really nice. I absolutely love that at the end of this movie, everything doesn't get fixed. I love that. And I'm getting a little ahead of myself here, but I love that Riley does not, or that we don't see what that text says at the end. I mean, she does smile, so it's like, presumably, if you want to interpret it that way, it's like, yes, she did get on the team. But maybe she's just happy because her friends got on the team, or maybe she's smiling because she saw the text, but then she's reflecting. I mean, it does look like she's reacting to it, so it's probably not like, hey, I didn't make the team, that's great. But, maybe it's something else that happened, or maybe it wasn't that at all. I like that it's a little bit ambiguous, and if you've watched me at all on this channel, you know that I'm not a person who will say that ambiguous endings are good purely because they are ambiguous. I think sometimes some directors get caught up in the whole thing of, well, an ambiguous ending is automatically smarter, and so they just put it in there, even if it doesn't make sense, in my opinion, to put an ambiguous ending there. But I think you need an ambiguous ending in this film because the whole point of this is, look, sometimes life is a little bit of a roller coaster. You screw things up sometimes. You make mistakes. You say stupid stuff. You do stupid stuff. Sometimes you feel like you're not good enough. Sometimes you feel like you're great. And all that really matters is that you maintain a grounded sense of self in that, and that you realize that all these emotions that you're feeling in the moment are not always you. That none of them are the totality of you. You are all these things mixed together. You can be sad sometimes, and again, that was part of the original, but I feel like this goes a bit further, because that part where she says, I'm not good enough, that didn't go away at the end. She's still going to think that sometimes, because, I was actually really, really hoping that two things were not going to happen. I was hoping that Riley would not be a person who just didn't royally screw things up sometimes, which, she's the protagonist of the story. I mean, really, our emotions in Riley's head are like the protagonist, but Riley is, the person that we're invested in. I was hoping that it wasn't going to be the case where she just was always on top of things. She always came out on top, like, oh, there was a small obstacle, but I still came out on top. No, I like that she kind of screwed over her friends a little bit. I like that she was trying to fit in and she was super awkward. And a lot of that stuff was really clever. That's kind of the bread and butter, I think, of good films like that. Is have a character that you still root for, but is just really, really dumb sometimes in some of the ways that they try to do things and fail. Like, not infuriatingly dumb, but like relatably dumb. Like, we've all done dumb things like that, You shouldn't have a main character who's just making you mad by being so irritating all the time, but you also shouldn't have a main character who's just perfect all the time, or near perfect, or the only time they ever fail is because someone else did something that they couldn't foresee, which is another thing that really gets under my skin. So I like that they did that. And I also like that at the end of this movie, you couldn't really have it be like the first one, where you feel like, okay, now you've reached an area of balance, because this girl is 13 years old. No one reaches a state of just emotional equilibrium at the age of 13. That's usually about the time that all of that starts to fall apart a little bit. But I like that, we all remember having friends that were very positive people, very nice. They kind of hung out with everyone. They were, they had a pretty good relationship with their parents. But even those people have days where they are awkward or angry or screw things up or say something rude to someone that they shouldn't say. Like, that is kind of, I think, what adolescence is. Just it's very turbulent, but it doesn't mean that, that you're always dumb. It doesn't mean that you're always smart. It doesn't mean that you're always angry. It doesn't mean that you're always happy. It's just a mixture of these things. And that sounds simple to reach. Like, that sounds like a very simple thing to achieve in a film, but it really isn't, because I think it could have very easily gotten away with, or not gotten away with, gotten away from the point of that. I like at the end that Riley kind of has a panic attack or an anxiety attack. I know those are different things. It's really supposed to be an anxiety attack, I think. And those things, I mean, I don't like that she has an anxiety attack, right? It's like, yay, Riley had an anxiety attack. No, I like that was depicted in such a way where they didn't feel the need to say it was an anxiety attack, but it very clearly feels like that's what it is. And even though anxiety stepped away from the controls, she still had that swirling there, and she felt like she couldn't move. And it was hard to get her out of that. And it's not like she got out of that and she was like, okay, great, I'm fine now. It's like it took some major confessions, and again, not to push just guilt necessarily, but it took her trying to come to terms with these things to get to a point where she can cope. I guess that's the word I've been trying to converge on, is cope. She's coping with these things. And even though she kind of made peace with her friends at the end, you don't have the idea in your mind at the end of this. It's like, oh, she's never going to have this problem with her friends again. No, she might. Next year, this might happen with her friends all over again. You know, that's, again, I'm going to sound like a broken record, but it's kind of part of being a teenager, right? You're learning how to be social. You have these new ideas in your head. You're trying to cope with all these new things that you're thinking and feeling. It's not just that your emotions are all over the place either. It's that as a teenager, you know, with adolescent psychology, you start to think in new ways, and you start to think that you know more than you actually do sometimes. And then sometimes you start to think that you're stupid when you're not, and it's just, your brain is changing so much, and you're trying to stay grounded and stay with it and just not lose your mind most of the time. And I thought that was depicted very well in this film. The only thing, like I said, that was a little bit of a negative was that it got a little muddied in the middle, but at no point did I think it really lost focus at all. I didn't think they lost the film or anything, because of a couple things. First of all, these characters are still very likable, and you get into things like the stream of consciousness. There are always jokes peppered throughout. There's always something keeping the plot driving forward. Inside of Riley's head, it's the thing happening with the central control and anxiety, and outside, it's this whole thing with the camp. You know, it's the thing with a teacher and trying to get to this whole thing of, am I going to score these goals? Am I going to make the team? And that part at the end where she kept scoring on her own teammates, and they're like, what are you doing? We're your own teammates. Why are you doing this? And she's trying to appear great, and she's trying to fit in and get friends. And it's not like Riley's doing things that you don't understand, because what she's trying to do is, you know, her own friends kind of kept the fact that they're moving away from her, they kind of kept that from Riley a little bit. And so it's like, well, these two were not very loyal to me, so I'm trying to make these new friends. And I'm trying to, you know, get the approval of this coach who herself wrote in her journal that Riley's not ready. So all of this is really smart writing, I think, because it's like, it would have been so easy to have teenage Riley doing things that are completely irrational in response to her emotion. It's not irrational that she wants to do these things. It's just the way she's going about them is not completely correct, and it's hard for her to gauge what the correct response to that is, because the things that she's afraid of are very real. You know, she's afraid of abandonment because her friends are literally leaving her. She's afraid of not making the team because the coach has put down in her own journal that she's not ready. You know, so it's very smart, I think, in the way it applies those things. And I'm kind of getting more of an appreciation of it as I'm talking about it, because I think I'm starting to realize more and more about the film as I'm going along and reviewing it. And I just feel like, yes, the middle part of it, maybe it was a necessary evil to have those things be a little bit confusing in order to pull this film out the way it is, or to pull this film through and have it turn out the way it is. I'm not sure, but I do know that at the ending, I mentioned it kind of pulling everything together. I really do believe that. I really do believe that all of that was kind of worth it at the end to get to the ending we got to. And I got choked up at the end of the first film, and definitely this one, maybe even more in this one, actually. Because I think the emotional, hard-hitting moments were a lot more sustained in this one. Because it's just, you've been through this whole ordeal, and you understand all the things that are going on with her, and you just feel like at the end, that like she's coming to terms with this, and like I said, I like that her friends and her, I like that she didn't necessarily, they didn't make peace for every single thing. Like I like the fact that it doesn't feel like everything is fine now. It's like that's still going to be a memory that the three of them have where things went wrong. But the point is, I think these girls are getting to a point where they understand each other. They understand what each other is going through, and it's like, yeah, you did kind of a crappy thing there, but it's okay because we're still pals. Like we're still buddies, and that's the important thing. And we're going to be there to support each other. Just really smart writing there. So I just have to give this film a big thumbs up. I don't know what I would give it. Probably at least a 9. I'm probably not going to give it a 10 just because of some of the things I mentioned, but at least a 9. And the voice acting in this was just exceptional. Okay, one other thing. I thought the jokes with the kids' cartoons maybe went on a little bit long, but it's fine. I mean, it definitely got a lot of laugh. Like, I say that from a conceptual level. Like, I started to be like, okay, maybe this is dragging a bit, but there was never a point where it wasn't funny, right? And there was never a moment where I thought, oh my gosh, just get on with it. Like, it still made me smile. And I heard quite a few people in the theater laughing about it. And I heard like mostly it was the older people laughing at those jokes. The kids, I think, were just kind of like, oh, it's a kids thing. Like, I thought it was kind of funny that the kids in the theater didn't really seem to be overly entertained by that. They didn't think that was overly funny. They just kind of thought that was, oh, okay, here's a kids thing, right? And I heard the adults chuckling about the bag talking to nobody. It just, that stuff is it's you would think it would be really obvious, but I think it's just really funny. It would have been nice to see a little bit more of the workers, because in the first one I know that like the two guys who keep sending up that stupid jingle for no reason to Riley's head. I thought that was a really, really funny joke. That was probably my favorite joke in the whole film, in the first one. But major takeaway from this, I really want a third film about adulthood. I don't know if they could tackle that and keep it G-rated necessarily. Just a whole film about, going into adulthood and all the emotions that go into that. That I think would be, I mean, not that you have to make it, very, very adult or anything, but it's just, I think you would have trouble doing it justice with a G rating maybe. So, but if they're willing to tackle that, I would totally go see the third film. Because again, Inside Out 2, it's not, like, I almost forgot that Riley would get older, even though that was kind of the point of the first film. It's like, I just kind of thought, well, what could you possibly do with a sequel? Well, you can follow Riley's changing emotions as she goes into adolescence, and hopefully now they'll have one where she goes into adulthood. Depending on how the box office is. I hope the film does well with box office. So we will see. Hopefully they didn't spend a tremendous amount of money on this film. I mean, it's one of those films that you kind of can't really skip out on the budget, because it's animated, but you want it to be, I mean, it's a beautifully animated film, right? Just like the first one is. I imagine the second one has more sophisticated graphics just because it's released so much later. But I don't really think there's a way they could have really not had the cost. I mean, maybe they could have cast people that weren't famous, because I think that's one thing that Hollywood is relying way too much on. I've seen so many films where they just have like a cast list on there, like boom, 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 boom. They just list all the cast members in the trailers. I saw some of that in the trailers we watched today before the film. But other than that, I don't really know what they could have done. But slam dunk for both films I saw. I saw the Mario movie last summer. I saw Inside Out 2 this summer. This is the first summer blockbuster I've seen that I've really liked. And it's just such a great feeling to go to the theater and see a film and just walk away really liking it. That's just a great feeling to have, I think. And I definitely felt that with this one. Again, I didn't expect to get so choked up in this one, and it was for different reasons too. Like, so I thought the first film was much more focused. I mean, not much more, but it seemed much more focused on Riley's story. Whereas this one I thought seemed more focused on what's going on inside her head. But you're starting to feel. I think the real emotional moment comes not just from what's happening on the outside. It definitely helps, but the real emotional pangs come from what's happening inside, Whereas the first one, I thought it was more about her, leaving leaving on the bus and coming back to her parents and finally admitting things like. And I could see people saying that this film is a little bit of a retread. I could see people saying that. I would disagree, simply because, people getting to an emotional state and having to talk things out. If that's going to be a retread, then pretty much any film about emotions is going to be a retread. if that's what's qualified as a retread, because, that's what you do. A lot of times, you have emotions build up and build up and build up, and you put them in a bottle, kind of like what happened in this, and eventually, you have to talk it out. Now, again, I talked about the thing in the middle. I just remember the scene with the emotions being put in the bottle. They didn't really do a whole lot with that, but it was, it was just kind of a side allegory, like, oh, all the emotions being bottled up. It didn't really necessarily have a good external application for that. And I guess that's a way I'll describe that I just thought of, which is some of the things that were happening inside Riley's head didn't necessarily translate to things happening on the outside all the time. But I think that's okay. I think it's okay to have it be more of a side allegory there that's not necessarily related to the central plot of what's going on outside of Riley's mind. So, yeah. But it's I don't know. It's a different flavor too. I like that the film was a different feel. And when I watched the first half of this film, I thought, well, it's fine. It's going to be a film that doesn't really break a whole lot of new ground. But it's okay. It's doing its job. And that's very much how I felt. And then at the, as we got to the conclusion and it became more clever, I just really thought that they kind of pulled it together and hit it out of the park. And I don't know if it'll improve or be less good the second viewing. I'm not sure. Maybe now that I know where it's going, I'll see more of the, symbolism and stuff in there. But I just thought it was really great, you guys. I'm so glad I went to see this. I do want to say that at the I guess I'll talk about this because I want to talk about everything. The post-credits scene, I have no idea what the deep, dark secret was. I thought that was kind of funny, that we didn't really, I turned to my buddy, he didn't hear it either. I don't know what the emotion was, or emotion, I don't know what the secret was at the end, but I thought that, I like that Joey was like, oh, I was afraid you were going to talk about this time, and even the deep, dark secret didn't like that secret. I just thought that was really funny. What was that? Oh, I was going to say something else about the film or something. Anyway, I didn't really notice what that was. It didn't really take away from my enjoyment, though, of the film. Oh, I know what I was going to say. I like the part at the end where in the mom's head, it's like, oh, what does she mean that she just said it was okay? And then, it's like freaking out, and then the dad's like, she said it was okay. That seems about right. I don't know why I like that so much. So I want to talk about the new emotions too. I know I'm just refusing to wrap up this review, right? I want to talk about the new emotions. So the envy emotion, the way that envy and embarrassment and anxiety kind of interacted together, I thought that was great. Ennui, I think they should have called that emotion something else, because it said something like boredom, and really I think what ennui was like aloofness. And if you don't know what ennui means, I didn't really know exactly what ennui meant, and I know that kids don't know what that means. They probably should have said something like aloofness or something like that. That's the only part of the emotion that I think didn't really work as much for me. But I like that emotion manifested sarcasm in that one scene. I don't know, maybe sarcasm should have been something else. I know sarcasm isn't really an emotion, but you can feel sarcastic sometimes. You can feel, mockery. It's a little bit hard to do that. I thought, maybe they should have called the emotion something else. But again, I still really like the way it all came together at the end. I really do. I would highly recommend this. I definitely want to own both of these movies on Blu-ray. I don't own the first one on Blu-ray, but now that I've seen the second one, I want to rewatch the first one, and I think I want to get both of them on Blu-ray so I can see all the, goodies with the special features and the commentaries and all that good stuff. So probably for this film, I'm going to say a 9.25 out of 10 for this film, which is very high for me. I have no idea what people think of this. I'm assuming that people like it. I assume it has a positive review on Rotten Tomatoes. Like I assume it has a positive critic score. I don't pay too much attention to the critic score because I don't think critics can be, ironically, I don't think they can be neutral critics. I think the audience, average people you ask, as long as it's like scientific polling, I think it's pretty accurate there. Again, Rotten Tomatoes, it's not the most accurate source. It's not really scientific, but I think in general people are going to like this, / really like it. I think kids are really going to like it. I think adults will maybe even like it a bit more. I think teenagers are going to adore this, if I just had to guess. I think teenagers will probably find this really funny. I can see, I did think about something when I went to see this, which is I can see teenagers who attended this film with their parents being a little bit embarrassed. I can see that being a thing, and I can see parents kind of nudging their teenagers and being like, see, this is what you're like. So that's unfortunate. I can kind of see that happening, and I really hope that that doesn't happen. Like, I really hope that parents don't, by and large, do that to their teenager. Oh, my voice just cracked when I said they were teenagers. There's some irony for you. That parents don't do that to their teenagers where they're watching this film, like keep nudging them and be like, see, that's you up on the screen. But I think if teenagers go to see this, like, with their friends, I think they'll really like it. And I think that's a good thing. I think this is a film that, when you walk away from it, I think it will help you understand and help you check your emotions and help you come more into contact, help you come more into a state of, like, coping with your own emotions and understanding them and to a point of peace with them. And also a state of understanding other people's emotions a little bit more. I think that's probably the best thing about this film and what this film is going to do. I think it's going to help teenagers and children and adults alike all be a little bit more understanding of one another. I think it's a great thing. So Disney, Pixar, keep making films like this. I really like it, and I want to hear what you guys think. But until next time, I'll talk to you guys later. Bye-bye.